So I just want to really thank everybody for joining the shir and to mention what the shir is all about. It's about connecting to Har Sinai. Now we've got a little bit of a moshel of connecting because we're on Zoom. We're trying to connect to one another, to join together to hear something to prepare us for Zman Matan Torah Seder, the time when the Torah was given. You know, it's a bit like going down memory lane. If you used to live in another city, you haven't been there for a long time. When you go back, it's not quite the same, but it's exactly the same. It's not exactly the same because you're changed, but the place is where it always was. It won't have moved. If you come from Australia and you go back to Australia after 25 years, Australia is still there. So Har Sinai is the same. Shavuos is the same. Pesach is the same. Sukkot is the same. We're going back to the time when something happened in the past, and therefore it happens in the present. The next Monday is the giving of the Torah. It's not merely an anniversary of Har Sinai, it is Har Sinai. It's going back to Har Sinai. And the question I wanted to address was, how do we reconnect to Har Sinai? What does Har Sinai mean to us? So on a very simple level, I would suggest that Har Sinai is the moment of clarity. It's the moment when we see clearly that Hashem exists and that he runs the universe. Not as a belief, not as a knowledge, but as a total awareness. In the same way that you're aware that you're sitting on a chair, no one's told you you're sitting on a chair, you know it, you can feel it, you haven't got the slightest doubt that the object you're sitting on now is a chair or a couch, it's something you're actually, or a bed, you're sitting on something now, or you're standing, you haven't got any doubts about that. So at Har Sinai, when Klal Yisrael, every man, woman, child, and baby heard Hashem saying those words, Anoich Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God, who took you out of the land of Egypt, that was heard by everybody. It's not second-hand information. It's not belief or trust in Moshe Rabbeinu. It's personal experience. So that means that Har Sinai is about sensing the presence of Hashem. And all of us, at various points in our lives, have some greater opportunity to sense the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. One of the conditions is quite a hard condition to meet, a hard condition to satisfy. What is that condition? Ein hashchina shoira elam teich simcha, the Gemara says in Shabbos. Shchina, the divine presence, only rests where there is simcha, where there is joy. So of course that does not mean to say Hashem is only present where there is joy, because Hashem is present everywhere. He is omnipresent. It means that we only have the ability to sense the presence of Hashem when we're in a state of joy and happiness. What does that mean? So we first should pose the question, what stops happiness? What prevents a person from being happy? There are many things. One of them is pain. Pain stops a person being happy on many occasions, especially emotional. Physical pain too stops a person being happy. But happiness isn't just about whether you're in pain. Happiness relates to belief in Hashem and observation of Hashem's actions in my life, in your life. the more you see the Rebbeinu Shalom in your life, the more you are besimcha, and the more you can have some connection with the idea of Hashras Hashchina, the presence of Hashem, which is a tiny little bit like the experience we went through at Har Sinai. I wanted to focus tonight initially on 13 aspects of Har Sinai, all of which we understand to some degree. The very first one is, what's our relationship to the Torah? Do you have belief, absolute belief, that every word from Bereshis till the Zos HaBracha was not written by Moshe Rabbeinu? It's not that Moshe Rabbeinu is the author of the Torah. The author of the Torah is the creator of heaven, is Hashem himself. At Har Sinai, when we heard those words, I am Hashem your God, we had from that emunah in the Torah, because otherwise we could have said, I trust Moshe, I don't think he's a liar, but that's not the same thing as total conviction. Emunah in the Torah is the first aspect of Har Sinai. So we say we're coming to Shavuos, we're not just coming to cheesecake, we're coming to Emunah in Torah. The second thing is, Hashem is concealed. We see a world filled with many aspects of Hashem's Hanhoga, Hashem's running the universe, which we don't understand. Nobody understands, literally nobody understands what Hashem is doing. Even Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't understand what Hashem is doing. He asked Hashem, why is there such a thing as a tzaddik, a righteous person who has a very good life, and another righteous person who has a very bad life? Why are there some wicked people who have a very good life and some wicked people who have a very bad life? Why does there seem to be no correlation between our actions and what happens in our lives? And Hashem said to Moshe, this is a question which I can't answer to you, because you're in this world. This world is the world of darkness. It's the world of concealment. It's the world of mystery. No man can see Hashem and stay alive. This world has to be a world of faith, where even Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest Navi, who, so to speak, spoke to HaKadosh Baruch Hu face to face, even he could not understand how Hashem runs the world. All the more so, tzaddikim of later generations, all the more so, tzaddikim of our generation, all the more so people like us, ordinary simple people. At Har Sinai, there was a revelation, there was a Gilui Hashem, so that no one had to believe in Hashem from Har Sinai onwards. They knew Hashem. The third aspect of connecting to Har Sinai is that we have a very interesting halacha on Shavuos. On other Yomim Tovim, there are different ways that are sanctioned for celebrating the Yom Tov. It says in the Gemara, you could either celebrate a Yom Tov Kuloi Lashem, totally engrossed in spiritual pursuits, or you could be Kuloi Lochem, entirely involved in physical things to celebrate the Yom Tov. Or half, 50% of the day could be spent in spiritual pursuits, and the other 50% in material ones. It says when it comes to Shavuos, these three opinions don't exist. Hakol Moedim Ba'atzeres, everybody agrees on Shavuos, to Be'ino Nami Lochem, we need to have some lochem, we need to have something for you, something physical, because it's the day that the Torah was given to the Jewish people. What does that mean? Because it was the day the Torah was given, we need to have some physical celebration. It can't just be spiritual. Yes, because the Torah gives us a whole new approach to life in this world. The Torah teaches us not to separate the physical and the spiritual. The Torah teaches us to use every single physical thing in this world for service of Hashem and coming closer to Hashem. That everything physical is meant to be converted and channeled into a spiritual goal. So therefore nothing is forbidden. It's just forbidden at that time or at that place or with this person. But it's not forbidden. The Torah doesn't forbid it. It just says now you can't. Is food bad on Yom Kippur? No, it's not bad on Yom Kippur. You just can't eat it until Motzi, till the Tanis is over. So how can Moedim Ba'atzeres be in Amalachem? Because on Shavuos, Klal Yisrael got the Torah, and the Torah teaches the Jewish people that we can and should be gashmiistic. We should be physically involved. We should see the physical world not as something to avoid, run away from. Instead, we should see the physical world as something given to us as a challenge, a deliberate challenge, in order to use everything physical for a spiritual purpose. So that instead of eating supper just because you're hungry, you eat supper because you say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you gave me commandments. You want me to eat supper. Why? So that my body should be strong, so that I can use my body to serve you. Whereas Rabbi Rucham says in Das Chachma Musa, Smichas oilam haba me'olam hazeh. The whole possibility of creation of oilam haba, of the everlasting world, the real world, the world that we're all going to go to when we die, the proper world, the real life, because this life is just pre-life, it's just preparing for the real life. The only way to get there is through olam hazeh. The olam hazeh isn't just a corridor. It's true, the Mishnah says in Ovos, olam hazeh don't praise the olam haba don't track them. It's not just the corridor. It's the place where we create olam haba. The Gemara says in Brachos, Hi Alma, this world, kibei hiluladam, it's like a wedding. Chatoifa achoil, grab and eat, grab and eat. In other words, use every single day of your life for olam haba. By using olam hazeh for olam haba, realizing what's money for, mitzvahs, chesed, stock, achnasas orach, Torah. See Gashmias as being very important because it's there for the sake of Ruchnis. So that's the third aspect I thought of in connection to Har Sinai. Har Sinai was where we had a gilui, we had a new revelation about the tachlis of Olam Hazeh. The Olam Hazeh is for the sake of Olam Haba, and therefore Shavuos must be celebrated with food. You have to have food on Shavuos. You can't just fast on Shavuos. Another yontif you'd be allowed to fast, but not on Shavuos, because the Torah is teaching us it's not. Doesn't need to be, and there shouldn't be a conflict between the physical and the spiritual. They should synthesize with one another. They should harmonize. They should work together from different sides, working together. The fourth aspect of connecting to Har Sinai, which is very practical and down to earth and difficult to do, is creating connection to one another. Klal Yisrael at Har Sinai reached this amazing level of Vayichan Shom Yisrael. They encamped together at the foot of the mountain, like one man with one heart. So too, every year at Shavuos time, and throughout the year, we should aspire to that amazingly great level of spiritual refinement, where there's no barrier between yourself and any other member of the family, Klal Yisrael. Where Klal Yisrael is one family and everyone is together. And where we realize what politics is, we realize what friction is, we realize what machlokes is. It's all Ma'aser Sof. It's all the work of the Yetzer Hara. All of it. It's all soft. It's all evil. And it's all damaging and harmful. So we saw that the one time in history when the Jewish people were united was when we stood at Har Sinai. No other time. Rashi says this in Chumash, he brings down the Medrash. This is on the Yechon Shem Yisrael. He said, every other encampment was with tarumas umachloikas, with complaints and with arguments. This was the one time when we weren't arguing, we actually were united. And then as a result of that, we merited this amazing thing, hearing Hashem talk to us, not just talking to the prophets, the Nevi'im, talking to us, to every ordinary human being, every tiny baby, every single person heard it. Good people, bad people, clever people, stupid people, everyone heard it. That was from Achdus. The fifth message is we know that Har Sinai was chosen because it was the lowest of the mountains to teach us that Chochmah, wisdom, comes to those who have humility. It's all about Hachnah. It's all about modesty. Shavuos should teach us not to be Bali Gaiva. The horrific situation now in Eretz Yisrael, where you can have been suffering today and yesterday with rockets being fired, hundreds of rockets from Gaza. 3 o'clock this morning, little grandchildren in the shelter crying to their father, to their son, are we going to get through this? Kids are scared. They're frightened. They're in a bomb shelter. Doesn't this create hachnah? Doesn't this make us have humility? That the IDF can't do anything about it. The world's against us. How is the bombardment reported on the radio? Only one thing. Israel fires rockets into Gaza, missiles into Gaza, rockets in Gaza. That's all. They mention passing retaliation. It's very clear. We ought to have achnon. We ought to admit we don't know what to do. Our only thing is Elecha Hashem ek, Vel Hashem eschan. Shema Hashem echonei. That's all we can say. It's hachno. At Har Sinai we got hachno. Har Sinai we learnt the message of humility because we were humble. We weren't proud. We weren't gaivadik. We didn't start asking too many questions. Hashem offered us the Torah. We didn't say Maksiv or what's in the Torah. We were humble. Mountain chosen was the lowest mountain. That's the fifth aspect of connecting Har Sinai that built. Number 6, the amazing level of Klal Yisrael who said, Na'aseh v'nishma, we don't even know what you want of us, Hashem. Whatever you want, we're willing to do. That requires enormous humility and submission. That the Jewish people, Am Yisrael, all of us, the Anashomas were there. We're living now in Tovshin Pei Aleph. We're living now in 2021. But Anashomas were there then, thousands of years ago. And there we said Na'aseh v'nishma, because we understood Hashem knows best. He knows best. And he is saying to us loudly and clearly, I have a Torah for you. I'm going to teach you. It's Eitz Chaim, it's a tree of life. I'm teaching you how to live. Chatzkel Levenstein's wife once received from a Talmud, Ponovich, who lived in America, she received a gift. The gift was a mixer, electric mixer for the kitchen, Kenwood. And when they received it, they'd never seen one before. Chatzkel Levenstein, the Ponovich Mashgiach, looked through the box until he found a leaflet, an instruction leaflet. And he said, what a big Mussar lesson I have from this mixer. If the manufacturer of the mixer realizes you can't make this machine without enclosing a booklet to tell you how to use the machine, so too the creator of the universe, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he created a world and he created human beings, he wrote a book. He wrote an instruction manual. He gave us a Torah. He didn't expect us to just figure it out by ourselves, because we can't figure out by ourselves how to live. And that's what Nasa V'Nishma is about. We're saying, look, you're the manufacturer. You created humans. You made human beings. So, of course, you are the one who's written a book to give the instructions as to how to use life, how to use the world. That's the Torah. So we said Nasa V'Nishma. We didn't have to say what's in it. Do I have to question the manufacturer of the product whether or not they've written a good instruction manual? They've sent an instruction manual with this new computer that I just bought. Of course, I should use the instruction manual. Number 7. Hiskarvus. We came close, but Hashem says, no, you can't come close. Hashem says, hold yourself back. Even for Kedusha, hold yourself back. 3 days before Shavuos, the 3 special days, Shloshis Me'akola. Because Hashem Yisbarach told us, even for Kedusha, hold yourself back. You need self-control. Number 8, you see in that itself so much wanting to come close. We have to gear ourselves up in our preparation for Shavuos, saying, I want to become a better person. I want to become more spiritual. I'm willing to admit my faults. I'm willing to focus on the fact that something needs fixing. Maybe my achdus needs fixing. Maybe I have to learn to get on with the people better. Maybe I have to forgive the unforgivable people. Perhaps I have to do some soul searching about how well I daven. I once said in a shir, I think one of the hardest mitzvahs that we've got is a mitzvah which we all do, but very few people do properly. And I include myself in that. Hamoin, the vast majority who don't do it properly. What mitzvah is that? Brachas. We all say brachas. But if we're honest about it, so often, I just want a cup of coffee. I just want an apple. Before I put the food in my mouth, before I put the cup to my lips to drink from it, what do? I mumble something. And it's not much more than a mumble. It's just a mumble. I call it a bracha because I know it's supposed to be a bracha. But do I think about each word? Do I say each word slowly and clearly? Have I got the guts to say it audibly? Are you scared if you say it audibly and somebody else can answer Amen? They'll think, what's happened to you? Have you been brainwashed? Did you go to the jewel shir? Are you a Rebbitzin now? Why do you think you're so special that you're allowed to say brachas as if you're a big tzedekis? And the truth is, it's not a big tzedekis, it's just a regular thing. I'm saying a bracha, Baruch, Tov Hashem. Think, what's that mean? Elokeinu, it's our God, Melech Olam, King of the world. Shehakol Yivudvara. It's just a different bracha. Instead of the normal thing, which most people do, not everybody, of course. Most people will say, That's it. Drink, eat. Very great. And when we do a bit of soul searching, we say, that's what it means when we talk about Hiskarabas Hashem. I want to come close to Hashem. I want to make a bigger effort to perform his mitzvahs, do his will. Number 9. What happened at Har Sinai? Har Sinai, we showed that the Jewish people is very different. It's a different nation. He chose us. And we have to train our minds and our emotions above all to more, not just pride in being Jewish, more simcha, more joy in the fact that we have the privilege of mitzvahs, to see mitzvahs as pleasure rather than burden. I've got to daven mincha. Somebody once said to me, in the winter time, it gets dark so early, you can be finished with mincha and mariv by 5 o'clock. And then you don't have to daven or go to shul until the next morning, until 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock the next morning. It's such a long time. And you've got nothing, you're done and dusted. And I thought to myself, that's the problem. That so often we look at our duties in a negative way. We don't have the simcha of Asher B'Chabod. The 10th aspect, I think, of Har Sinai is Kedusha. We see that before Har Sinai, this is related actually to something which is very practical. You need to prepare for Kedusha. So the Torah writes, you look at the Psukim in Parshas Yisro, it says there that Hashem told the Yisrael 3 days beforehand, Tigshul Ishalaz, and the wives had to separate from one another. It's Kedusha. There's a sanctification. Where do you have Kedusha? Kedusha comes from separate. It says, Kol mokum sh'atamoitze geder erva sham atamoitze Kedusha. Wherever there's a barrier against immorality, there is holiness. It's about Gedorim. It doesn't mean that Torah expects us to have no desires, to have no wants, because we have to control them. In the same way that I may want to eat food very, very much, but actually I can't. I haven't said a bracha. The Gemara says when you eat without saying a bracha, it's like you're a thief. You've stolen the food from the chef. You've stolen it. You haven't made a bracha yet. It's not that the food is bad. It's that I haven't done what's necessary to allow me to eat the food. And the same thing with other forms of yates, of desire. Which Baruch Hu says you have to have kedusha, which means elevation, separation. I can only eat this food, I can't eat that. This has got a hechsher, this doesn't have a hechsher. I don't know if the ingredients are okay or not okay. I'm going to face them, I'm going to ask. It's Kedusha. There is an 11th aspect of it, which is more difficult to explain. The Gemara tells us that when the Jewish people stood at the bottom of Har Sinai, which Baruch Hu took the mountain, he suspended it above their heads, and he said to them, if you accept the Torah, good, otherwise I'm going to crush you with this mountain and you'll all die. The world will go back to being nothing. And everyone is disturbed by this. The Rishonim asked the question, we said Na'aseh Nishma, we wanted the Torah. Why did Hashem have to force us to accept it? Why did he have us under duress? We accept the Torah. So the Maharal explains that's not what it means. He says what it means is they had such clarity. They understood so clearly how good the Torah was, how important the Torah was, how valuable and precious it was, that it was no longer a choice to accept. I'm going to suggest another explanation. Many people mistakenly translate the word mitzvah as being a good deed. That's wrong. A mitzvah is a commandment. Kadosh Baruch Hu wants us to know that even though we voluntarily accepted the Torah on our shoulders, it's a must. It's not as if there are lots of ways to live. One of them is keeping the Torah, one of them is not keeping the Torah. Am Yisrael are taught you need to keep the Torah. If there's no one on earth keeping the Torah, the world will lose its purpose and the world will cease to exist. Because we need to know that what we're doing isn't only good and right, it's essential. During COVID, there were all sorts of exceptions made for essential services. Essential services have to continue, no matter what, despite the pandemic. It's essential services. We have to see Torah and mitzvahs as essential services, not to see observance of mitzvahs as merely doing the right thing, the proper thing, the correct thing. No, it's essential. Kof Aleim Har Kegigis is together with Nasa Nishma. You volunteered. So if you volunteer, you think it's optional. If you want to be from, be from. If you want to be non-from, be non-from. If you want to be mitzvahs, good. If not, not. So Hashem says, no, this is what the Bria needs. The universe requires observance. It requires Torah. Torah is an essential service. Number 12. Where was the Torah given? We've only got 13, don't worry. 13 aspects of connect. Number 12. The Torah was given in the midbar, in the desert, in the wilderness, in a place where you can't live. Because we need, the Odessa explains, we need to understand that the life of Torah and the life of this world contradict one another. And you need a leap of faith to live a Torah life on this earth. His example was Shabbos. He says you could go to a shopkeeper who's Jewish and he keeps his shop open on Shabbos. And if you suggest to him that he should close his shop on Shabbos, he will tell you, I'll go bankrupt. I'll be out of business. My main shopping day is Saturday. I can't possibly close my shop. Impossible. He's right. Torah and nature are at loggerheads with one another. And we live a Torah life here in a supernatural way. If you look even in terms of the financial aspects of living as a full person, what does schar limud cost? What do schools cost? What does it cost when somebody supports their child in learning after the wedding? It's impossible. It doesn't make any sense. How does anybody manage? The answer is it's missing. It's miracles. Torah and Teva are a contradiction to the Torah was given in the desert, where you can't live. We lived there for 40 years, but it's a place where you can't live. We need to know that. What's the last message, number 13? The last thing we have to know is the nosan lonu Torahs emes, that the Torah is a Torah of truth. We have to see in Torah the truth. That Kadosh Baruch Hu starts off with something which is absolutely true. He doesn't tell us he created the world because we wouldn't know that's true. We could believe him, we wouldn't know it's true. He told us instead, something we knew to be true. We have to see the Torah as true, even though there's so many parts of the Torah which we can't understand. That's what Shavuos is. In Shavuos, we come to that re-accepting of Torah, the acknowledgement, this clarity. I would add a very, very important part of the Shavuos message, with which we should finish tonight's shir. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a Torah to be observed in this world. And Moshe Rabbeinu in Shemayim, Gemara says in Shabbos that Peches with base, in Shemayim, in heaven, Moshe Rabbeinu had to argue with the Malachim, the angels. Because they said, why are you giving the Torah to human beings? Human beings aren't suited to the Torah, they're not holy enough. So Moshe Rabbeinu explained to the Malachim that the Torah is perfect for man, because Malachim, the angels, are not challenged. A human being has so many things in life which are hard. His midas, his jealousy, his sadness, his environment, his spouse, his children, his mother-in-law, his panosa, shidduchim for his kids or his grandchildren, how to raise children successfully. He has loads of challenges. And he thinks to himself, why did Hashem have to give us all these difficulties? Why couldn't he make life straightforward? And the answer is, this is the very purpose of Torah. This is what Moshe Rabbeinu said to Malachi HaShoros. The Torah can't be for you because you haven't got the issues that we've got. We have to be told don't steal because we can be tempted to steal. We have to be told don't do this because we're tempted. We're told that don't be Mechal Shabbos because we're tempted to Mechal Shabbos. We're told don't lie. We're told all sorts of things. We're told not to talk Lashon Hara. We're told to do loads of things which are really against our nature. That's our very purpose of existence. So Shavuos should teach us to believe in our capacity not just to observe the Torah, but to see the difficulties of life as tailor-made because of the Torah. The Torah is targeting our nature, our situation, our challenges, our difficulties. So instead of being angry that we've got the challenges of life, see on the contrary, this is why we've got to. When we have our simcha of Yontif, it says every Yontif is for simcha. Moyadim the simcha. All Yom Tovim, their function is joyous celebration. Moyadim the simcha. The purpose of Shavuos is to celebrate. What are we celebrating? We're celebrating the fact that Hashem has chosen us. He's given us a way to live and cope, deal with things, and handle them. And even when there are great fears and anxieties, missiles being fired, rockets being fired, tremendous tsar from a horrific tragedy in Meron, which we don't understand at all. Why were these tzaddikim, these great people, taken in such a terrible way? We have no idea why. And we say all these challenges, what are they there for? Niskarvus Lashem. This world is a gym. It's a gymnasium. People go to the gym, they want strong arms, they want biceps, they lift heavy weights. But Baruch Hu put us in this world because it's a gym. It's a place where we can gain strength. And as we work on ourselves to be happy, to be close with one another, to forgive other people, to reconnect to our Sinai, to get to Vayichan Sham Yisrael, then we could be zoich to a real shavuos, connecting to our Sinai, ability to hear the voice of Hashem next Monday morning. Hashem saying to us, Hashem revealing himself to us. And as we daven for all the tzoros to end, we beg Hashem, we say, Mi sha'omar la'olam da, yoima l'tzorei seinu da. The one who said to the world, it's enough, I've created enough, let him also say, sorry, seinu da. People have been through enough. They've had enough challenges, enough difficulties, enough problems. Now it's time to open the curtains. Now it's time for Zgalas Kloit Shemayim. Now we should be Zoiche. Mavi'ein Ritzin Ercha Barina. Yerushalayim Beis Mikdash Chol B'Simchas Olam. B'Bias Mashiach Tzidkei. We should all be Zoiche for good yontiv, to reconnect to our Sinai. Try to think at least about some of those 13 aspects of Har Sinai which I outlined to you in the shir. Thank you very much for joining us.